Welcome back to Hardware Unboxed. It is part 3 of this month's Q&A. Tim's finding things funny. It's out of control, the Q&As. I don't know what's going on. But, yeah, we've got the Patreon questions to get through. Have you got yourself back together?
I'm composed. I'm ready to go.
Excellent.
Let's answer some Patreon questions.
Steve and Tim. When AMD puts Navi on their APUs, early next year, I reckon,
Nice.
What do you think the performance bump will be over Vega? Do you think it'll be as significant as between Navi and Vega discrete GPUs? Yeah, I think it will be. I mean, it would make sense that it would be.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about the same area, or I mean, it's hard to say exactly how much area they'll have for the GPU,
Sure.
but if they have the same area, just moving from...
Well, the CPU's smaller as well.
Yeah, I mean, just moving from 12 to 7 nanometer is going to allow them to put more cores in the same space.
Well, they also got the whole chiplet area.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
So it could be significantly big. Yeah, it's really... It could be, yeah, a lot different, and it probably will be. But yeah, like the 5700 XT die, that's like half the size of Vega 64, and it's much faster.
Yeah, that's right.
So a chiplet size, GPU die could be pretty impressive. I'm excited for it anyway. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, I think we're going to get not only the architecture advantages of RDNA, but on top of that, just more, compute units. They're currently the APU's top out at 11, is it, compute units for...
Yeah, Vega 11, yeah.
Yeah, so... I think some people have done calculations that say like a 16 should be possible on that sort of thing. So, yeah, it could be a double whammy. And then on top of that, improved memory bandwidth will help a lot for those parts too. So all those things together, it should be, pretty compelling sort of product. Yeah,
the good news is it shouldn't be too long before you find out. So.
Yeah, hopefully not.
Tim, have you ever done a guide/checklist/debug for setting up a PC/monitor? Properly. Oh yeah, we have to set the PC and the monitor to stop tearing. I know there's a lot of variation in settings available for low, medium, high end monitors of different ages, and surely there's some basics. So yeah,
I think with tearing, if you mean tearing and not something like flickering, which is a bit harder to sort of fix, or if you don't mean like smearing and other issues that monitors have, you're just speaking specifically about tearing. That tends to be just a VSync on-off type issue. So if you have VSync off and adaptive sync isn't working, and you're sort of running above your monitor's refresh, or below, I guess, for adaptive sync off, you will get tearing. It just depends how bad it is. That depends on how quickly you're moving in the games. Slower paced games, tearing tends to be less obvious because each frame differs less from the previous frame. If you're zooming around and playing like Apex Legends or like an Overwatch or something, tearing is much more noticeable because it just goes crazy with the differences. So the simple thing to stop tearing is if you have an adaptive sync monitor, keep within the adaptive sync window if you can. So something like capping your frame rate to 1 FPS below the monitor's maximum refresh rate is quite popular for people to do. If you need to run above the maximum refresh rate, make sure your VSync is enabled. That'll stop tearing. Or if you don't have adaptive sync, you'll just need to have VSync on all the time. Otherwise, it's going to be a problem for you. So, yeah, it's a fairly straightforward problem to solve, which is good. And I think these days tearing is not something I want to put up with, so lots of solutions.
Awesome. Steve, I know you mentioned motherboard reviews would be boring in a previous Q&A. It seems like I'm always surprised with what features some of them do and don't have, such as the Asus B450F Strix lacking the boot failure recovery, etc. Would you think between features, VRM's board connectors and BIOS interface advancements, could there be content to be had? You could definitely make content out of that. It's just, I don't want to. Well, the thing with like motherboard VRM testing, and I think why a lot of our viewers seem to enjoy the testing we do, is that we're sort of taking a series of boards and providing in-depth testing that covers that. Like if we reviewed like a B450 and a Z390 and sort of boards all over the place and did VRM testing, and you don't have a whole lot of boards in that same class to compare with, it's not that useful. I mean, it lets you know how well the board works, I suppose, but is 70 degrees a good result? And, maybe there's boards of the same price with the same features that run at 40 degrees. And that's probably a better way to go for if you want to upgrade in the future and things like that. But mainly, I'm just not... There's so many things to do, and it's kind of like the channel's sort of focused on doing what we do because we enjoy doing it. Like if I really enjoyed testing storage devices and really enjoyed Linux stuff or server stuff, that would be the focus of the channel. But I really enjoy CPU and GPU benchmarks predominantly in games, so that's what I do. Tim loves his monitor stuff, so that's why it wasn't like I was sitting here going, oh, I really want monitors to be covered, which I do like that we cover monitors, but it wasn't like I hired Tim specifically to do monitors. He was just someone else that creates content on the channel, and that happens to be something he's really interested in. So yeah, we do the things we're interested in.
Yep, pretty much.
And I think if we're excited or interested in doing it, that comes through in the content, opposed to like doing something just for money, like doing a sponsorship deal just to get paid to do it, or covering something just because we think it'll get views. Yeah.
If you want to give us some money, get some merch, you know.
Speaking
get some
of
happy unboxing.
We're going to do a 20-minute video about merch now. But yeah, anyway, everyone keeps asking me to do motherboard reviews, and I'm just not that interested. But
yep,
sorry.
Now that the 3990X is confirmed real, what are your expectations for performance? The 3970X is already melting faces. Are you prepared for 64 cores for your editing rigs? For editing, considering what we're already seeing with the sort of Premiere scaling, obviously the 24 core is providing a big performance gain, but then the 32 core is like more of a marginal improvement. So I would think that the 64 core, even though it's double the cores, is definitely not going to give, for editing, anywhere near double the performance. It's going to be marginal again.
No, we'll probably wait to test it before we build our new editing rigs, but I'm expecting it to be next to useless for Premiere Pro.
Yeah, it's going to be for your 3D rendering.
Yeah,
and
it'll be a beast. It'll be absolutely amazing, and it won't be a 2990 WX situation where if you can't utilize it or the software isn't optimized for it, that it'll be a disaster. It'll be worst case, absolute worst case. It'll be as fast as like the 3970X or the 3960X, but yeah, not for the type of content creation we do.
So I wouldn't be expecting 2 times the 3970X performance in those optimal applications.
No.
I'd be thinking, 70 to 80% would be like
Sure.
really good.
Yeah.
But obviously, as well, the value isn't going to be there. This is going to be an expensive product. We don't know the price, but I mean, $4,000 is probably
Ballpark.
optimistic.
Yep.
Yeah. So you're not going to get like it's not going to be a super good value product. But again, we've talked a lot about how for these products, the content creators that do it will just happily pay a sort of price to improve their workflow.
Absolutely.
It's just like it's chump change for people that make money with their PC.
Yep. A 40% performance improvement for a design house or a real studio
for $2,000 over
for
3970X.
That's to say a 30 to 40% increase in performance at the top end for a 100% increase in price is worth it. When you're talking about the absolute best of the best, they'll do that.
Do you think that the 9900K will eventually stop being able to do 5 gigahertz all core now that the 9900KS is out? Will Intel take all the CPUs that were capable of this and move them to the 9900KS now? I mean, it's an interesting question, isn't it? Because it's possible.
It's possible, but such a hard thing to test. You need like the Silicon Lottery guys to keep updating the results as they go.
And it's never going to be clear what, if you buy a 9900K, when that inventory was from. Like, was that from pre-KS? Was it post-KS? And also, it seemed like a lot of 9900Ks can do 5 gigahertz all core with an overclock. So it just sort of depends, how many they need to allocate for the KS models, or maybe for the bidding they're just taking the very, very top percentage.
The KS was meant to be a limited edition run. Yeah. So how limited is the limited edition?
Yeah, like is it a fresh run, or is it they're just taking from the K batch?
And how long is it going to be on sale for?
Yeah.
Like they gave it a 1-year warranty because it was a limited edition thing. So I don't know, it's kind of a weird one, that one.
With the release of the 9900KS, do you think Intel will churn out one more SKU and release the 9900KFS?
Why the KFS? What am I missing?
Well, I think the F would be one without the iGPU in it, like the KF.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so
that'd be the KSF, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Which is the F or the S take precedent? Who knows?
Dunno.
It's too many letters.
Don't know. It'd be like the 10900 DOA. Too soon. Moving on. Do you guys ever get review? I don't know why we're doing that, but review samples on loan basis. As in after the review, the vendor expects the product shipped back. Yeah, that's pretty common. Personally, I feel it's also really dumb on the company's behalf, and it's really annoying for us. Generally, we sort of have a policy where we don't do too much of that unless it's like a really expensive or exclusive kind of product. But I don't like to return stuff because, first of all, I don't want to hire a logistics manager that, you know, it's a pain in the backside when I have 20 motherboards and then I've got to match up all the bits and pieces to put it back in the box. And I like to keep things on hand because if someone in the Patreon Discord chat asks, you know, have you got this board and have you got a problem with it, the board that I may have tested, I can sometimes, if I've got time, whip it out and, you know, have a look and see if it does what they're thinking it does. And also when we update results all the time, it's great to have things on hand. We always do look back videos or we update results, and not having things on hand is just a nightmare. So, and I think it's dumb for the companies because if they've sent us, you know, a 5700 XT graphics card, like say, I don't know, say MSI wanted their Gaming X card back and we're using that for like, you know, updates and comparisons. Like some of these products we use dozens of times over the next few years. Right. And even if the product's end of life, it's still, you know, brand recognition on what was a good product.
Yeah, it's like if we have the product, we have at least the opportunity and chance to talk about it and use it for future testing. If they want it back, that chance is gone because we can't test with a product we don't have.
I always find it baffling that a company will send over like a $200 product from the US or Taiwan and spend anywhere from $50 to $100 getting it to us, especially if it's like a rather large object, and then pay to send it all the way back.
Yeah.
And it's like, what?
I think you find with cases and a lot of monitors that come internationally, they're not really interested in the return shipping because it can be worth more than the cost of the product.
Well, that's what I'm getting at, though. Some people seem to recognize that.
But some people do that.
I've had motherboards that have been handed around to that many reviewers that every part of the packaging is just completely flogged. The board's covered in paste. It's in the worst condition ever. It's got, and like the box has about 30 different labels on it from everywhere it's been. And it's just like, guys, like,
and it's like, surely they have budget for like a $400 product to have a few of them.
I've had some graphics cards turn up that must have been repasted that many times that I can't even review it. Like I've sent it back and just said, send me a brand new retail card so I can benchmark out of the box performance, or don't bother wasting our time with it.
Yeah, I mean, the things that I most often send back are sort of the really high-end monitor products like your G-Sync Ultimate $2,000.
If it's
almost all the laptops I have to send back because those can be easily $3,000-4,000 Australian dollars. And I think it's fair that a company isn't going to want you to keep like a $3,000 product, especially because we don't do a lot of.
Well, if it costs them $100 to get it to you and then return it, that kind of makes sense.
Then that's easy.
But where if it's, you know, $100 to $300 product, it's kind of silly.
I don't mind monitors getting taken back, though. I know for components it's a bit different because they're used a lot more for testing. And I do retest monitors from time to time, but monitors just take up so much space. The boxes are enormous.
Same thing with cases. Like, so can't get rid of them quick enough.
Do you think AMD is making a mistake by not releasing a sub-24 core Threadripper, thus allowing Intel to shift their HDD stuff to the mid-range due to Intel's recent price cuts? Or do you think AMD is sandbagging? For the upcoming embargo lift, is Intel's new price cuts good enough to entice people that need additional PCIe lanes? And did Intel improve the core-to-core delta temps of the voltage leaks?
Well, we have foresight to help answer that one, don't we? Because this was clearly asked before the 3rd gen Threadripper release and before Cascade Lake X. So I think you probably know the answer to this question yourself. But I think AMD's really nailed it. I think I suppose everyone, we were a little skeptical thinking, well, they've got a 16-core AM4 part. What's that going to do to Threadripper? And we were looking at the current like 2950X, the 2920WX and making sort of those guesses based on that. But now that we've seen what 3rd gen Threadripper's like, it's kind of like high-end desktops were here and it sort of takes it to off screen somewhere up there. Kind of like my Cinebench results that were. So I think they've nailed it. I think 3rd gen's become, you know, extreme high-end desktop. And then Cascade Lake doesn't really have a position because it's outranked by second-gen Threadripper, which AMD are committed to continuing. So, I concluded all this in my Cascade Lake X video in a lot more detail if you want to watch that.
Yeah, I mean, do they need like a 16-core Threadripper? I mean, the only advantage you get there, there are advantages. There would be your faster, more memory bandwidth.
What are they going to price it?
But that's exactly it.
$1,000?
Like, it'd have to be expensive, and then you get the disadvantage of also needing an expensive HEDT platform.
Yeah.
So the 16-core is in a really great position because if you think about what is the market like for 16-core or lower price HEDT products, like the market for HEDT products overall should be people that make money from their computers. So whether you're doing, and we've talked about this before, whether you're doing like video encoding, you're doing 3D rendering, you're working for like big companies that need you to do processing work with your computer. Mm-hmm. So generally, the products that those people go for are the fast ones because they're, increasing a little bit in terms of performance for a significant increase in price pays off for them because their workloads are done faster. So if you think, why would a buyer like that need a much cheaper, much slower processor? It's like they probably wouldn't. They would probably just go for the higher end parts. So then the product that that sort of person would be targeting to is your sort of enthusiast, hobbyist, you do YouTube for fun. You do a bit of you might edit some of your family photos and stuff. You might make a few home movies every once in a while. You might mess around a little bit. You might game and stream or something. Mm-hmm. In which case, then having a mainstream platform with 16 cores is all you need. You don't need the advantages of the HEDT stuff.
Yep.
So that would make that product, I don't think it would sell very well. And I don't think it's really necessary.
Yeah, it'd just be like the 8-core Threadripper part that we had previously. Basically, Ryzen came out of the gate with 8 cores, and that was game-changing on a mainstream platform. But it's 3 generations now, and AMD is basically saying, well, we consider 16 cores now to be a mainstream part. We're moving on. They're going to 64 cores for Threadripper. So it'd be so weird having a 16-core part and then a 64-core part. So anyway, this question was asked prior to the release of 3rd gen, and this would have been a kind of an interesting question to answer a week or so ago. Well, before the 3rd gen Threadripper release, you'd sort of be like, yeah, maybe it'll be a mistake, but it's clearly not now.
Yeah, definitely not. And, you can see even with Intel's previous HEDT lines that, the 18-core was the part that sold lots, even though it was quite expensive, and then the lower-end parts were kind of like, eh.
So they had an 18, 16, 12.
Yeah.
What was it? No, 14, 12, 10.
It's
there was an 8. There was a 6 and a 4 as well, wasn't there?
I'm not sure.
KB Lake X.
There was, KB Lake. Yeah. So you just look at what is a professional doing? And do they really need that sort of differentiation in the market to go, oh, well, I can save $100 and get 14 instead of 18 cores?
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
No, creators that need that go for 18 cores, go for the fast one.
Yep.
All right, first and foremost, I was able to finally sign up to your guys' Patreon. I believe it to be more than a worthwhile investment. Well, thanks. In the last Q&A, you guys briefly spoke about culinary items like hot sauce and beer, which begs the question, what is your all-time favorite beer? Or what is your all-time favorite style of coffee, hot, ice, cold brew? Have you tried nitro-infused coffee? Keep up the great work. So a bit of a drinks question, bit of an off-topic one here. I know you don't drink beer, do you?
No, I don't drink beer. Apologies to all the beer drinkers. I don't mind coffee, but I'm a simple man. I'm easily pleased.
When you go for an alcoholic beverage, what do you normally get?
Spirits. Yeah.
Yep.
So,
fair enough.
But again, no particular drink or whatever.
Just whatever's on sale.
Yeah,
whatever gives you the best frames per dollar.
I'm easily, as I said, I'm easily pleased. So yeah, not too picky with food and drinks.
Yeah, I'm the same. I drink beer, which Steve does, and I'm not as much into the. I do like spirits. It's just if I go for a drink, I think beer's quite easy. If I'm getting something that's my favorite, I kind of like the sort of European wheat beer type beers. They're nice and smooth some of the time, but I don't drink coffee at all. I just don't really like it. Doesn't agree with me too much, so I just avoid that. So nitro infused coffee, not going to try it.
I haven't tried it, but I'd be up for it.
Nice question from Luca here. Why are naming schemes so difficult? Looking at NVIDIA's Turing cards, for example, we have 1,000 different numbers that can all be used to donate performance levels, and we only see the 2060, 2070, and 2080 used, with others coming from the 16 series, all accompanied by different TI or super suffixes. Wouldn't it make more sense and lead to better sales if companies made the naming clearer instead of frustrating and confusing their consumers? Yes, it would.
Yeah, but you've got to be a marketing dill that thinks you're a marketing genius to understand why they do the things they do. But yeah, I don't really get it. Everyone, like, whenever we talk about things on the channel, I don't know, it can be something that you're really adamant about, that you're like, no, I'm right about this. And then you'll get some people arguing for, some arguing against. Doesn't matter what it is. Pick a topic, there'll be people for and against. I haven't really seen the people that are like, no, they make sense, they're good. You know what I mean? Like, whenever we talk about this stuff, whether it's in our reviews or whatever, saying that the names suck, I don't see comments, people defending the names.
I think consumers, and you guys watching would be part of this, really feel the pain of trying to compare products when they have such stupid names.
So that's what I'm getting. Everyone's on the same page. So if there's someone that disagrees with this, feel free to drop that in the comments, because we'd love to hear your point of view. But it seems like everyone in the tech media, all the customers, everybody thinks that the naming for so many of these products has just gotten so stupid. I realize in a lot of ways we are running out of ways to name them, but they could still be a lot better than they are.
Yeah, I'm sure that part of the Galaxy Brain marketing genius idea is they actually don't want it to be obvious for consumers, because if there's a bit of confusion there, you might end up spending a bit more money than you otherwise might need. Like, for example, the 16 series versus the 20 series, that for an everyday consumer, that makes it so obvious that the 20 series is better, that like the 16 series is almost like a last gen product. I think we've talked about in the past that it sounds like some retailers are struggling with this thing of people coming in and thinking that the 16 series is actually like a last generation product. And I think part of that is on purpose. It's so that, you know, buy the 20 series because it's the new product. And even though the 16 series is sort of new, we would rather you don't spend $200 but spend $400.
Yeah, there was a great quote from you, which I can't remember. But when I said to Tim, it's so bizarre, the 1650 Super is quite a good product. Like, it's quite good value. Yeah, it's only got 4 gig of VRAM, but it's quite a good product. One of the more interesting, better value super cards of the refresh. Well, probably the best, really. I said, I wonder why NVIDIA's been so weird with this release, withholding drivers, not giving pricing information so we actually know that it's good value, all those kind of things. And what did you say? You said something like...
I think I said, like, because they want to sell RTX cards.
The way you worded it was hilarious, though. It was something like you did like an NVIDIA Jensen quote or something, saying like, GTX series are for peasants or something, by RTX. Can't remember what it was. It was very funny. Maybe if you find it, you can...
If I find it in our private chat, I'll put it up on the screen.
It cracked me up because it was so true. It's kind of like GTX is the brand they almost spit on now, and buy RTX or don't bother. And it's weird that they don't seem that upset or annoyed that the 16 series, from what I've heard, all reports, it's not selling well because people think it's a previous generation product. And that's definitely, as you're saying,
it's an issue.
Yeah.
I think with the like Intel product names in particular, I think there's certainly, they have like a naming scheme. Like someone comes up with, you know, the first 2 digits refer to the generation, the third digit will then be the class of product it is, the final digit will be like a TDP or something like that. So from that perspective, they justify it as like, hey, each of these numbers actually means something, and if you understood our marketing, if you understood our code names, you would understand what these things mean. But to me, it's like, you shouldn't need a cryptographic decoding sheet to figure out which products are better than other products. It should be higher numbers are better, and that used to be the way with Intel products. It used to be the higher you go, like, you know,
coming from megahertz,
9700 is going to be worse than a 9900. But with this 10th generation series, especially on the mobile side, they've got 2 different naming schemes for the same like Core i7 products.
Yeah, well,
like, how on earth are anyone figuring this out?
It's true what you're saying, though, that they think it's a good idea. I don't think you'll mind me saying this. I was talking with Steve from Gamers Nexus privately, and we were joking about the naming scheme of, I think when we were testing the Cascade Lake X stuff, and at the start of Steve's Cascade Lake X video, I think he said the 10980, or it was quite funny, and he said he got the name wrong quite a few times, and they just went with it or whatever. I said, yeah, I kept saying, I think like 6 times I had to redo the audio. I said the 1098XE. I don't know. It was just stupid. But Steve was saying when he met up with Intel for a meeting or at a trade show, I can't remember, whatever, but I don't think he'll mind me saying that he told the Intel reps how crap the names were, and they were trying to explain it just like you were saying, that it makes sense. And he's like, yeah, but it's still crap.
Yeah.
So,
it's the exact same thing with monitors. Each of those letters and numbers, and I always talk about like alphabet soup, it's like each of those things actually does mean something, and someone has said like, oh yeah, the M means this and the Q means this, like, and the 27 means this. But if you jumble it all together and you're trying to compare products, it just makes it impossible. And what I really like are monitors like Gigabyte's monitors, which is so simple. And it's like, sure, it's not as easy to compare monitors because they tend to be quite different, but something like KD25F, it's like a few letters and numbers, it's okay. You're not talking like 10 letters and numbers.
That's an identification code though.
Yeah.
So I get that for like inventory, that you would have that code that means something. But then give it a marketing term, like Logitech did a pretty cool job with that. I think that's probably what, I think they're doing really well sales-wise as well, and probably because they have those, you know, what was it? I can't even remember some of the names now, like the, God, I had that mouse, the Spectrum thing or whatever it was. I can't remember them now.
Razer does the same thing with almost all their products.
Do. Except they release like 6 under the same name though. Well, 6 generations is like the 2018.
That is a problem, yeah.
So that gets a bit out of control. Anyway, enough about names. They suck. Moving on.
I was just wondering how it is possible for monitors to advertise a certain response time or refresh rate and then not actually hit those claims. Just through researching in your videos alone, it seems like most monitors never actually hit what they claim. It requires a lot of due diligence to find a monitor that actually does what it claims. Are there no industry oversight on these issues? What are there any do's, don'ts when looking for the right monitor? I mean, we spoke a little bit in the previous Q&A.
Depends on how you test and come up with those numbers as well.
So that's definitely part of it. I think as far as like hitting the refresh rate, I haven't seen a monitor that can't actually refresh at the rate that it says. It will always 144 hertz, 165 hertz, will always display the appropriate amount of frames, generally speaking, unless you overclock it, which they can introduce issues there. The issue when I say like it doesn't hit the refresh rate is more about like if a monitor has so much smearing and ghosting because its response times aren't fast enough, then visually it doesn't look like you're getting 144 or 165 hertz because each frame is just smooshed into the next one because it can't. Basically, as it tries to refresh, it's changing the frame like halfway through when it gets through the refresh. So it never reaches the right value, never reaches the right color. So it just looks like a mess, and that blurs it up and you don't get the benefit. So when I'm talking about refresh rates, that's what I'm talking about there. With response times, it's just, as you say, like different testing methodologies. You know, I've seen, I think it was Gigabyte, one time they provided me their data for they took my performance numbers and my transitions that I was testing, and they produced their numbers from their testing. It was pretty close to mine.
Okay.
Sometimes it was different, sometimes it wasn't, but it was very obvious from their testing that they were taking a slightly different metric to me.
Yeah.
In taking like either when they said it was like a 4 millisecond monitor, that was like a minimum, or like if it was a 4 millisecond average, it was like they weren't measuring quite the same amount of the response curve that I do, measuring in a different section. So they will try and manipulate their testing to give the best numbers. That's just what marketing is about, I guess. And it's up to reviews to sort of sort out the good from the bad. Same with your VRM. It's almost identical to your VRM testing. Yeah. Like no company is going to say on their spec sheet, like, hey, our VRM runs, at this degrees. It's like they're going to tell you what the VRM is, and then it's up to you to figure out if it's good.
Another example is like power supply efficiency.
Yeah.
It's like some of them are at room temperature, some are at 50 degrees, whatever. So fine print is important. Steve, do you think the Ryzen 3000 boost issues are now for the most part fixed? Or is this something you think will continue to go on? I personally have a 3900X that will not boost correctly to spec under any conditions or any condition, and it's incredibly frustrating with inconsistent performance. Asus Crosshair Hero 8 G-Skill 3600 Trident Neo 240mm all-in-one liquid cooler, and it's the 1.0.0.4 AGESA BIOS. Well, okay, let's start with the first bit. Do I think that the Ryzen 3000 boost issues are now for the most part fixed? Yeah, I do. Because for the most part, it was a non-issue. We're seeing it now hit the advertised frequencies at times during certain workloads, and it makes like a small difference in performance on the boards that were working correctly. Margin of error type differences. Is there something that will continue to go on? Well, if you're still seeing the issue and some people are seeing the issue, then yeah, it'll continue to go on, but it comes down to your motherboard. So I've heard a lot of complaints about the Crosshair Hero 8, a lot of complaints about BIOS revisions and things for that board. So I don't think there's anything wrong with your processor. I think if you put your processor on a board that's more refined, better developed, then it'll be fine. The Asus board should be able to do it. I haven't looked into using the latest BIOS with that board. But if you're seeing inconsistent performance, that's really annoying. But again, it's the board. Who do you blame for that? AMD or Asus? Probably a bit of both. I mean, it's a tough one. Like, we've wanted AMD, we've wanted Intel to offer broad platform compatibility. It's amazing that we've had a CPU released in 2017, an update in 2018, a major update in 2019, and they all work on the same boards, sort of, within reason. Same socket. You can't use first gen on an X570 board, but you've got that broad platform compatibility. That comes at the cost of issues. Basically, these board partners are used to having one generation and a refresh, and then push everything aside and you get to start over. Whereas now they're starting over and having to provide compatibility backwards for older boards, which provides or creates tons more work for them. It means development slows down massively and they have to shift focus to, something, either getting the old boards working or optimizing and working on their new boards, which they're selling and making money off at the moment. So you can guess where all the development and time and effort and resources is going, and that will be Asus's X570 boards. So although the Crosshair Hero is a previous generation high-end board, it'll be on the back burner.
Yep.
So yeah, I imagine it'll get sorted out, but when? Don't know. With AMD coming out with more cores on their processors, it got me thinking about Linus's 7 Gamers 1 Tower project. I do not know if Linus actually said this, but I think he mentioned somewhere in his videos about how whole home desktop setups might be a thing in the future. Okay, so one big server for everyone.
Basically, yeah.
That's, yep. Do you think we might see something like this in the future actually happening? I don't think so, because unless something like your 3970X all of a sudden becomes an affordable CPU, because think about it right now, you still have to buy everyone a graphics card. So that's one of the more expensive components in a gaming system. Everyone still needs a certain amount of RAM. So you still have to buy all your RAM. Then you need a super expensive motherboard that can support all your RAM and a high-end CPU. So as I said, unless your high-end desktop stuff becomes really affordable,
the value equation
doesn't really make sense, because most of the things you have to buy two of, power supply, case,
they're not
graphics card. So the power supply and case, it's like they're not super expensive. Well, actually, you have to buy 2 graphics cards anyway. So the components that you have to buy 2 of that you wouldn't have had to are case, power supply, storage.
And then your CPU and motherboard.
And then the CPU and motherboard.
Yep.
But they would end up being cheaper than the one high-end one. So I just don't think it's cost-effective.
And logistically, it would be complicated to set up.
It's a pain in the back. I looked at doing it a while ago. It's a massive pain.
How many people are going to be using this at the same time? A lot of people.
Yeah, it's definitely not worth it.
So.
Yeah, I think just from pricing up the components, it's not worth it. But then, when you take into the logistics of setting it up, it's a bit of a nightmare. Fun, cool concept, but no.
Based on you guys' experience, how wide is the problem of backlight flickering on FreeSync monitors? Do they all do it to some extent, or is it just some models, or even worse, the same display of the same model. Some do exhibit the problem while some do not. I think this problem is not discussed enough. How would one trade less latency for worse image quality? Sounds like two different questions there. The backlight flickering thing, it's not common. I've tested lots and lots of FreeSync monitors, and generally I don't run into the problem. It's very rare. But certainly it does seem like, especially for some of the cheaper products, it is possible that some of those units do have it while others don't. I've seen some people, even in our own Discord chat, like buy a monitor, they say, oh, this is flickering. I'm like, RMA it. They get a second one in, no problem.
Okay.
So I think it's, just a bit of a luck of the draw, and certainly the more expensive monitors you get, they have better quality assurance, generally speaking. Not always, but you'd hope so. I don't think it's that big of an issue, but it can be dependent on the exact model that you get. How would one trade less latency for a worse image quality? I'm not sure if you're talking about a monitor or a game there. I mean, as far as reducing latency, you tend to have to, for game side, you have to make your frame rate really high. So that means just turn down the graphics settings. For a monitor, latency is all about how the scaler performs, so it's not really possible to sort of tank the performance of the monitor. You can get really high resolution, great looking panels with no input latency, so it's just about the components they choose.
What do you think the reason for 1080 Ti's ridiculous pricing even after this much time after its release? So what do I think the reason is? Considering you can buy a 2080 Ti for the same price, why would anyone want to buy or sell a 1080 Ti at that crazy price? Not sure what region you're in, but I recently did like the ultimate secondhand used buying guide thing. And I went and had a look recently. And so 1080 Ti's secondhand on eBay are about $480. Actually, it's surprising how many of them are selling for like $5 to $10 around that 480 mark. So what's that? That's like basically 2070 Super territory. We recently compared the 1080 Ti to the 2070 Super. 1080 Ti was like 9% faster on average. So I'd get the 2070 Super because warranty, new card, but whatever. But they're definitely nowhere near the price of a 2080 Ti. That's like $1,000 plus. So they're less than half the price. So
not sure what's going on there. Maybe they're talking about a brand new card, because some of those retailers, they sell like old cards for really expensive.
Well, okay, I hadn't considered that.
I think that would be for like a really niche use cases at that point. It's like you need a 1080 Ti to replace a broken one, needs to be new or whatever.
Well, it was $700 when it was new. And if people are still selling them now and for some reason buying them, there can't be that many in circulation. So it's a sort of a limited supply thing. So the price is inflated, but I don't know. I don't know why you would buy it. It makes no sense.
Yep.
So
it has to be for some niche use case that they are thinking of.
Sure.
Now that Stadia has made consoles and PC hardware obsolete, what will the future bring for you?
Well, we're going to start doing Stadia game reviews and optimization guides.
Yeah, it's just devastating that Stadia was such a strong launch and has completely obliterated PC gaming from being relevant. So it's just it's hard times.
Yep, especially in Australia with our awesome internet.
Yeah. With Half-Life Alyx coming out soon in March 2020, do you think you'll be testing or skipping it? We probably won't test it because it's a VR game, right? So it seems like there's a lot of interest for it, but I don't know. I don't own a VR headset, so it's going to be a very, very niche game. I'm interested to see how much it sells and how much it improves for VR, but it's not for us.
No.
When doing benchmarks, what margins do you consider a win versus a tie? Does having 1 to 2 more FPS make something win hands down? Does a reduction of 10 seconds in Blender render make it a win? Or does it something have to be more like 10% better for performance? Also, does it annoy you if you see other reviewers reaching conclusions along the lines of, this processor / GPU has 1 to 2 more FPS, so it is the outright winner?
Thanks, goodbye. Thanks, goodbye. Okay. I suppose it depends on a few things, but generally when I've been doing my head-to-head GPU comparisons and stuff, I sort of say if the result was 5% or less, pretty much a tie, because you're talking about a few FPS usually. 10% or more starts to become, I suppose, to the point where you'd notice it like sort of 50 to 55 FPS on average. It's not a huge difference, but you can start to notice that a little bit. So if the cards are at the same price, then it's probably worth getting the one that was a bit faster. But as I said, it depends. Like, yeah, there's a whole lot of stuff you have to take into consideration. I suppose, does it annoy me if I see other reviewers reaching conclusions? Well, where are they reaching the conclusion? Like, if they've gone through all the information and they've gone through all their, their benchmark graphs, and then one card was 5% faster, but maybe it's not as good value, and they're like, that's the card to get because it's 5% faster. Well, that's just a dumb conclusion. But I think sometimes viewers jump to their own conclusions when the reviewer is discussing the results.
Yep.
So it's fair to say it was 5% faster in this game, therefore it is the better performer.
Yep.
I think that is a fine statement to say. But then if you get to the end of the review and you're like, well, this card, card A was 5% faster than card B, but card B might be 10% cheaper and it may have a few other perks, then anyway.
Yep. I think that's fair. What is your worst RMA experience? So, fun fact, I've never sent in a product for an RMA. Have you ever? You must have done it.
Gee. I don't think a computer part. I RMA'd other stuff, but not computer stuff.
Oh, yeah. I've RMA'd other stuff. I'm talking about, PC stuff specifically. Like, I've taken stuff back that doesn't work and got it fixed or whatever, but...
I've been pretty lucky. I haven't had, even review sample stuff, I haven't had much die on me.
Yeah.
Almost nothing.
Like that, the Asus motherboard up there that died, but I haven't RMA'd it because I've just got, I can just use a different board.
Yeah, I reckon I've had a couple of motherboards over the years maybe fail. Not always clear whether that was the board's fault or mine, though. Yeah, not much fail. Obviously, I've never, ever had a CPU fail apart from the 3900X that got blown up by that Asus motherboard that had the safety limits removed.
That was good times.
Good times, yeah. That was awesome. Yeah, no, nothing.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of people in our Discord, though, do have to RMA stuff a fair bit. So.
Well, just, hundreds of people buying lots of things. Apparently, unfortunately, RMA processors... they're really dependent on not just the company, but the day you call them, the person that helps you, how useful they are, how competent they are at their job. Obviously, it's on the company to hire and train the right people, but, there's that. Also, the regions, some regions are significantly better or significantly worse than others, so...
And it can depend on the local laws as to what they need to comply with for processes like that.
Yeah. It can depend on a lot of things, but unfortunately we don't have much experience doing it. And a couple of our Patreon members have had really bad RMA experiences that we've helped actually solve with certain companies that we have contacts with. And while that reflects very poorly on those companies, it's not something we can really do a hit piece type or investigation type video on because, as I said, like what was seen in that region may not happen in any other region.
Yeah.
Or a whole heap of other factors. So, and you would need more than, if you were really to go into a proper review of companies' RMA processes, you would need dozens, if not hundreds, of cases. You couldn't do just one.
Yeah.
And then it'd be like reviewing the reliability of a product based on a sample size of one.
Yep.
It might run for 20 years or it might run for 20 minutes. So
yeah.
All right, I like this one. Steve, did Threadripper 3000 just make Cascade Lake X look worse than Bulldozer did in comparison to Sandy Bridge? I actually thought, when I saw the 100% faster in Blender, I thought, okay. But no. Cascade Lake X isn't that bad. Cascade Lake X is, I mean, I probably don't need to explain how much I hated Bulldozer, and I trigger the AMD FX fans. God bless.
Not a good architecture.
Not a good architecture, no. No, it's not that bad at all. We'll just leave it at that, I think.
Yep.
All right. Tim managed to keep it together for that one. Good job, Tim. It was a rough start, but we got through it. And that brings us to the end of this month's Q&A session.
Nice.
Part 3 done. Patreon questions were... good questions.
Yep.
No, they were all good. And December, bring it on.
Yeah, I think this might even be going out in December. So It's always good.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm excited for the end of the year. It's been a long one.
It has been a long year.
Yep.
But we'll probably do a Q&A. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll put it out over the Christmas
December
period,
ones. Yeah,
something like that.
We'll work that out.
We'll find a time.
But anyway, thank you for watching, and that's about it.
Yeah, that's
I
it.
got
That's all
nothing
there was
else.
to say. Yep.
Yeah, there's some things they can do if they want to, but
Don't do this one. It's
just give us those.
yeah, there's a red button below. I think it says subscribe.
Yeah, you gotta
something.
click
Just-
that.
yeah.
Then there's like a bell next to it.
Yeah.
There's a whole procedure. Anyway, thank you for watching. This is your host Tim.
Yep.
I'm
that's
your
right.
host Steve.
We'll see you later.